Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be going through some Week 14 waiver wire pickups.
Hike!
Joe, the regular season is coming to a close here. We only got a little time left, so we're going to be talking about a few waiver pickups, and some of them we would tell you to really prioritize. Let's talk about the first one. Running back Jordan Mason, he was a darling early on in the year, and then when Christian McCaffrey came back, a lot of people said, hey, I don't need Mason anymore. I don't know why they did that, Joe. I think that might have been a mistake. Only rostered in 38% of sleeper leagues. We saw that Christian McCaffrey in the Sunday night game against the Buffalo Bills, we found out that he did suffer a PCL injury. He's out for the year. So now Jordan Mason is thrusted back into the starting role. Joe, he did pretty well. He had 13 carries for 78 yards in the Snow Bowl. So, Joe, what are your thoughts on Jordan Mason? Are you going after? How much FAAB? You're going to go for this guy, right? How much if he's out there? How much you going for to get him?
That's interesting. I think if you still got FAAB left, I know it's towards the end of the season here, and maybe you don't, but I think this guy's pretty high priority. I would probably say at least $10. Maybe I'd be willing to go more. I just think you're going to want a piece of this San Francisco 49er backfield. He's shown that he, was doing well early in the season. He was a back that you wanted to have. Like you said, I was honestly surprised, his roster percentage. I know you mentioned over in Sleeper, but even on ESPN, it's 41.7, so a little bit higher, but people have still been, getting rid of him because of McCaffrey was back. But just knowing the re-injury risk of McCaffrey, I was surprised that he was under 50% rostered.
I just don't understand that, to be honest with you. I mean, unless your league has a shallow bench, why would you not have this guy as a handcuff? He's the ultimate handcuff. You already saw what he did earlier on in the year. Just don't understand why people would just cut him loose like that. But regardless, I'm with you. I think I'd probably put around $15, around that amount. My only thing is the 49ers are pretty banged up. This team,
really
the wheels are falling off the wagon here. And you've got the Bears, who have been susceptible to the run, Rams, who I think is a good matchup, and then you got Miami and then Detroit on championship day, which Detroit is a tough run defense, but a pass funnel. So I don't know. I think that he's going to get good opportunities, but Garendo's also getting involved. So I don't know. He's not my believe it or not, he's not my number one priority, but of the people we're going to be talking about. But I think you definitely got to put something for him, but don't go nuts. I would say don't go nuts.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Maybe I know you mentioned 15, but I think anywhere from 10 to 15 is probably fair. I definitely wouldn't exceed that, and I think that fulfills your definition of by not going nuts.
But the thing is, though, I see him going over 20. So if you really want him, you have to go nuts. I don't know. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, I think a logical price is 15, but people aren't logical. So if you want them, you might have to spend more, to be honest.
Well, I just wonder how much FAAB people really have left, if they would even have that much to spend.
That's true. Yeah, I guess if they're a penny pincher, maybe they do. Are you enjoying this episode so far? Well, if you are, subscribe to our YouTube channel, smash that like button, and hit the notification bell for upcoming videos. We do videos throughout the year, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store. So going on to our next player, we got wide receiver Adam Thielen. He's the guy I want, Joe. 10 targets, 8 catches, 99 yards, and a touchdown. Adam Thielen was very impressive. Now, it was against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but honestly, when you look going forward here, the schedule here for the Panthers is not that bad. I have Philly next week. Then you got Dallas, Arizona, and then at Tampa Bay, a championship game week here. And to be honest with you, Bryce Young is starting to look a lot better. I think you and I are both surprised by that. I obviously was a big fan of him. You were not. You were thinking that he was going to be a bust. I thought that he could be good. And then when he got benched, I thought it was over. But now he's, came back in the starting role. He's actually doing pretty good. Adam Thielen only rostered in 51% of leagues. So, decently rostered, but not fully. But Thielen seems to be a favorite target of Bryce, even, when, Adam Thielen decided to sign with the Panthers. He was I believe, raving up Bryce Young that he was going to be this good quarterback. So I could see him getting involved quite a bit here down the stretch. What say you, Joe?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, doesn't have the best matchup next week with the Philadelphia Eagles, but after that, some really good matchups, especially again, being able to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is huge. Surprisingly, though, he's only 27.3% rostered on ESPN, so he's pretty widely available if you play on ESPN. And I do think I would definitely maybe making him, a decent priority. Hard to ignore the 10 targets. But he had, for the week before against Kansas City, just something to monitor as, guys like somehow David Moore and, Xavier Legette are also getting a decent amount of target share in this offense too.
Yeah, I hear you, but I mean, that was his first game back from injury after the bye. So I don't know what his snap count percentage was, 61% in week 12. Be curious what it was in week 13. If it was in those 80 or 90 percentage, I'm trying to feel better about him.
Yeah, that definitely would make me feel better. And like you said, I mean, Bryce Young, it just seems like he needed those a couple of games to just sit back and watch, I think it really helped him learn and grow just watching, Dalton run the offense the way it should be. And ever since, like you said, ever since he's been back, he's been looking like a capable NFL quarterback. But I know this is your top priority. How much money are you willing to spend for Thielen?
I'd say about $15 if I had it, 10 to 15. Especially week 14,
Yeah.
a bunch of buys. You're going to need somebody. I know Philadelphia's not the best matchup, but regardless of that, he seems to be the best target for the offense right now. So I'd like him.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good point. Not the best matchup, but I mean, the Baltimore Ravens, the Denver Broncos, the Houston Texans, Indianapolis Colts, the Patriots, and the Commanders all on bye next week. So another bye apocalypse at a crucial time as you're trying to, claim your playoff spots in fantasy here.
So next guy we're going to be talking about here is wide receiver Parker Washington. And boy, Joe, am I glad I scooped him up in our Dynasty League before he caught a flame. But he had 12 targets, 6 catches for 103 yards and a touchdown. Went to college at Penn State. Guy who was drafted, later in the rounds. Played really well. I think, honestly, a lot of his value here is because of the lack of opportunities surrounding him. I mean, you got Brian Thomas Jr., but other than that, Christian Kirk is out. Gabe Davis is out. They don't really have a lot of options. So as a result, Parker Washington's getting a decent amount of playing time. He's at Tennessee next week. He could be a bye week fill-in. What say you, Joe? Are you liking Parker Washington here down the stretch?
Yeah, I really am. And a lot of it has to do with, like you said, just with the opportunities, Christian Kirk out for the year, obviously Gabe Davis as well, no longer there. And believe it or not, as hard as it is to believe, like Mac Jones coming into this game created an absolute spark. And if you were a Brian Thomas owner, you were disappointed until Mac Jones came in. And then, same thing with Parker Washington, that they have a connection there, decent amount of involvement. This is a guy you don't have to go up and spend a ton for. I don't think, he's only 0.9% rostered in ESPN league. So he's, widely available. And I just think it's hard to ignore. I mean, this guy got 12 targets against the Houston Texans. And I know he caught 6 of them, but still 103 yards and was able to score a touchdown. So I'm definitely in on Parker Washington here.
How much you going to put down for him?
I want to go crazy. I think anywhere from, $0 to $5 is probably fair for him.
I was thinking the same thing, 2 to 5. Yeah. Next guy we're going to be talking about here is a running back, Chris Rodriguez of the Washington Commanders. Had 13 carries, 94 yards, and a touchdown. Only rostered in 2% of leagues on Sleeper. Here's the thing, Joe. When it comes down to it, the Washington Commander backfield, it was Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler has now been put on IR. But what people don't, I think, at least I won't say, I don't know if people feel this way. At least I remind myself that this is a 2 running back field kind of system here. You had Eckler getting involved and Brian Robinson. It wasn't solely one or the other. They were both kind of working in tandem.
Right.
It seems like Chris Rodriguez is now, the fill-in for Austin Eckler. And I think he's going to continue to stay relevant. My only thing is, though, this was a blowout against the Titans. So does that kind of change things? Because McNichols is also involved in the receiving game. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? It's kind of a tough one when it comes to Rodriguez.
Yeah, it is. I just think, I think between him and McNichols, Brian Robinson was banged up coming into this game. I think as we talk about getting your handcuffs, down the stretch here, I know the Commanders are on bye this upcoming week, but I still think it's a good time to, if you have the bench spot available, I think he is somebody, especially if you're a Brian Robinson owner, I think he could be worth stashing for the upcoming weeks. But I think if Brian Robinson were to go down, I think Chris Rodriguez is the guy that you'd want to have over McNichols. We've seen this guy perform before last year. Then he got out with a knee injury himself. Ironically enough, though, I mean, the Commanders had released this guy and then, added him back, with the Eckler injury. And he did get 13 opportunities. Obviously, like you mentioned, I think the fact that he had the 13 carries was largely because this is a blowout. But I think speculative ad, I think, probably anywhere from, $2 to $3. I'd be just kind of claiming him and looking to stash him at this point.
Yeah, to me, when you see, different content out there, players to stash. To me, this is a stash guy.
Yeah.
This is someone who, if Brian Robinson goes down, who has been hampered by injuries, he's who I want. My thing with him that I'm concerned about, though, is zero targets on the year. He's not involved in the receiving game. That to me is somewhat concerning, but maybe it's just because the opportunities haven't been there. And with, obviously, just because he's not been a relevant player for most of the year, but they also have McNichols. So, like I said, he's a speculative ad. I think he's worth stashing.
Yeah, I think, though, Brian Robinson doesn't get a whole lot of action in the passing game either. That was more so the Austin Eckler role. And as long as Brian Robinson's been scoring touchdowns, he's been scoring well for you for fantasy. So I still think, even without that, I mean, in this game, in a blowout, I mean, he had 15.4 points, with 94 yards and a touchdown. And if he gets that for you on the ground, you're not going to miss the passing game.
So the last guy we're going to be talking about to go pick up is somewhat of a streamer this week, but honestly, Joe, he could be good the rest of the way for the playoffs, and that's quarterback Will Levis. He's obviously can be kind of feast or famine. He's very risky out there, and he didn't do all that great against the Commanders. He had 2 touchdowns, 212 passing yards, but he's got Jacksonville Jaguars next week. After that, he's got the Bengals at Indianapolis and at Jacksonville. Honestly, you can't get much better than that. You just saw Russell Wilson carve up the Bengals. The Colts aren't that good either. So, I mean, these next 4 weeks are just juicy matchups. He's only rostered in 17% of leagues. I mean, especially in week 14, why wouldn't you take this guy as a flyer? And honestly, depending on your quarterback situation, maybe you just roll with him.
Yeah, I mean, boy, if you've, got Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud, maybe even streaming Bo Nix, I think Will Levis is going to be an intriguing option for you. 4.7% rostered on ESPN leagues. I mean, he's coming off of back-to-back weeks with 20 points in, most standard leagues here. And, he's got 2 touchdowns in back-to-back weeks. He limited his turnovers today against the Commanders. I know that's one concern, but if he's able to continue to do that, you mentioned the matchups. I mean, hard to get better than Jacksonville, and then he gets to have Jacksonville twice and in your championship. And if you do want to continue to roll with them, as you mentioned.
So that does it for this episode. We talked about a few players to go pick up on your waiver wire. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.